Today's video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. So Razer's back with a new small form factor keyboard. This is the Black Widow V3 Mini Hyperspeed Wireless. It's 65%, it's got 2.4 gigahertz hyperspeed and Bluetooth wireless. It's also the first to make use of the new unified dongle technology, but it does have a pretty beefy price tag and a couple different flavors of switch options. We're gonna check it out. You ready? Let's go! So the Black Widow V3 Mini Hyperspeed comes in your choice of Razer mechanical switches, either green clicky or sound dampened linear yellows, and packs a whopping price tag of $179.99 US. For transparency, Razer did send these out for review. As always, no other compensation took place, doesn't change anything I have to say about it, and nobody got to see or hear any aspect of this video before you did. Unless, of course, you're not subscribed, and then some people definitely did. It retains the basic core aesthetics of the Black Widow lineage, so you've got that floating switch design, the aluminum top plate, and that glossy front. Underneath, you've got two-stage flip-down feet, as well as in-body storage for the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Cable is detachable USB-C, it's left side mounted. You'll also see the power toggle there for both the hyperspeed and the Bluetooth wireless. They do include a cable in the box. It's thick, it's long, it's braided, USB-A to USB-C. For their small form factor wireless board, they opted to go with the 65% layout, which I personally love to see. So you'll not only have arrows, but the extra 4 keys on the far right column as well, which thoughtfully can double as macros. Switch choice, you either get Razer Green Clicky or the Yellow, which are a sound dampened linear. It's a misnomer to call them silent, as this board is still pretty loud despite the dampeners in the switches. When I reviewed the Black Widow V3 Pro, I lamented that they didn't use their higher end optomechanical switches that we see on the Huntsman line. A couple of you big brains out there managed to make the connection that the always on nature of the optical switches would be too much of a battery drain, and you were right. Razer has cracked the code for doing a couple of these optical switches in their mice, but a keyboard full of these things is too much for current battery tech. The keycaps here are ABS, but they're double shot ABS, not the painted variety. Double shot ABS is a much higher quality than the painted version. It's also the plastic that goes into GMK sets, so you may eventually develop shine on these keys, but you'll never wear the legends off. 65% layouts always create some challenges when hunting for keycaps, so even if you already own some aftermarket PBT sets, you may have a challenge finding suitable caps for the 3 single unit right side modifiers, as well as the 4 keys on the far right. And Razer has confirmed that they do have plans to expand their own PBT keycaps in the future to include compatibility for this layout. These caps have really thick walls, and the legends all look really clean and uniform. They do have some side printed legends that luckily are a little bit more subdued than some we've seen recently. The board actually looks pretty clean. I did press them about why they didn't go PBT on this board, especially with the higher price point, and the answer honestly made me feel a little entitled. ABS is easier to work with, and it is cheaper. What that allows them to do is localize this board to a greater number of regions, so users outside the US can have a layout in a key map that makes more sense for them. The stabilizers here are unfortunately the same Razer stabs we see on most of their boards. There's no nice way to say it. These are super rattly. So as you heard, those stabs really bring a lot of rattle to the table. I don't get a lot of ping off the board, and I don't really get a hollow sound either. Neither of these boards are quiet really, but even though I prefer the feel of typing on the clicky switch, I much prefer the sound of the yellows. So this board being portable, I would definitely reach for the yellow switches over the greens if I was worried about bothering somebody. And who likes being bothered? Really, not me for sure. I like a little extra privacy when I'm browsing some more obscure search terms. That's why I use ExpressVPN, the sponsor of today's video. ExpressVPN gives me a safe and secure internet experience by connecting to one of their servers in over 90 different countries with their super easy to use ExpressVPN app. It reroutes my connection through a secure encrypted server that keeps me more anonymous and prevents big tech or my internet provider from looking over my shoulder and harvesting data that can potentially be sold to ad companies. Yikes. My big thing with ExpressVPN is that they've got an app for whatever device I'm using. Whether I'm working from my desk or I'm on the go, they've got me feeling safe and anonymous by making sure my online activity can't be seen by anyone. With travel for work slowly coming back online, I love having this app on my phone so I can use it with public Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi in my hotel room. I can even install ExpressVPN on my Wi-Fi router at home, so any guests that use my connection are also protected, even if they don't have ExpressVPN. So if you're like me and you value your privacy, get secure by going to expressvpn.com/badseedtech. Using my code can get you an extra 3 months free. Big thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring today, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So we do have unified dongle support on this board, and what that means is you can use a single dongle like the one from the Razer Orochi or the DeathAdder Pro V2 and have it service the keyboard as well. 2 devices, 1 dongle. In terms of wireless performance, I tested a few different ways. Using that unified dongle almost always resulted in 2 to 3 times per match where the keyboard would begin to buffer inputs and have me stuck moving in whichever direction I'd press last. Whether or not I used a wireless headset also made no difference here at all. Testing using both dongles, I had no wireless issues at all, even using a 2.4 GHz headset at the same time. So we've certainly come a long way since the initial testing I did on the Black Widow V3 Pro, but it still feels like we have a ways to go on the unified dongle side. I did this testing on 2 different systems with 2 versions of this board and 2 versions of the Razer Orochi, and I was able to duplicate that input buffering every time. The pairing process for mating the units to the dongle was actually pretty straightforward, if a little buggy. Just a couple clicks and Synapse, and it works on the first time, maybe like 80% of the time. They have memory too, so even if you take the dongle to a system with no Synapse, it will still remember the multi-device pairing. I did notice some additional bugginess here. If you let the keyboard go to sleep and then attempt to wake it up, a lot of times it would result in like 2 to 3 minutes where neither the keyboard or the mouse function. Now, should you choose to run Synapse, you have access to a few things, including Hypershift that allows you to rebind the function layer. You can also assign the Hypershift key to anywhere on the board. Caps Lock, for instance. You get 5 different profiles you can save to the board itself for rebinding and basic lighting. You can also dim lighting after a certain time or completely turn the board off after a certain time to save battery. The battery life conversation is an important one because unlike some wireless boards, the chroma lighting on this board is not nerfed in any way. They'll let you run it full blast if that's what you want to do, but it will cost you in terms of battery life. Here's Razer's figures on battery given lighting usage. The engineers tell me that the figures are super close whether you're running in 2.4 gig or Bluetooth, which is wild to me, but you can see here you get up to 200 hours with the lighting totally disabled, whereas running 100% with spectrum cycling will take you all the way down to 17 hours. So it's up to you to balance the amount of lighting aesthetics with the amount of battery life. The Bluetooth mode also didn't give me any issues at all. It's able to connect to 3 different devices, and I found it dead easy to pair and switch between them. So let's talk value here, because $179.99 is up there. We looked recently at another wireless 65%, the ROG Falchion, and that board really failed to impress me at $149.99 despite having strong wireless performance. Razer's own Black Widow V3 Pro didn't do it for me either at $229.99. I guess the easiest observation here is it's just plain expensive to go with wireless boards from top producers like Razer and Logitech. Logitech's own G915 TKL still goes for over $200, and that's been in market for a while now. The downside to wireless is that it currently comes with trade-offs, the most obvious in this case being the switches over something faster like the Huntsman series. The Razer aesthetic is the Razer aesthetic. I seriously doubt you've even watched the video this long if you're not a fan of it. While I'm not crazy about the size of the bezels or the footer on this board, I do like the font better than the ROG offering. I'm still just not personally sold on the necessity of owning a wireless board or the value, especially when it comes with a price point as big as this one. A lot of what I said about the V3 Pro still holds true for me for this keyboard, even though I have become a little more indifferent about keycap material as long as it's double shot. In the pros column, I love to see more manufacturers embracing small form factor, and 65% is definitely the move. The wireless and standalone mode is really solid. Not nerfing the lighting is a win. Battery life is strong. I'm not a fan of the stabilizers at all, and largely because of them, the sound of the board in general. I would love to see these addressed. The unified dongle system still has some massaging to get that ready for prime time, and that price tag. Oof. If you specifically want a wireless setup and you need that triple mode connectivity, or you find yourself already immersed in the Razer ecosystem, this could be a go. If unified dongle is a big selling point for you, I'd wait for some of that firmware stuff to be sorted. Outside of that, for me, there are definitely more cost-effective ways to spend $180 on a keyboard. As always, links down in the description for everything we talked about today. Any questions, hit me in the comments. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.